Hello everybody and welcome back. I really hope you're doing well. Today we are going to be tackling Daily Race C, Deep Forest. Now this is last week's Daily Race C. It's been well covered on YouTube. It's been quite popular with the content creators. We have 12 laps of Deep Forest in Group 3 cars. Soft tyres only, and you have to make a pit stop. Now the optimal strategy here is to pit in. Don't take tyres, don't take fuel, just pit in, straight out again. And the best car, as you can see, as we're being hounded by wanting to T1 here, is the Ford GT. Now I, at this time, didn't have the Ford GT, so I was using the 4C, the Alpha 4C, which seems to be the second best car. And it's another interesting battle in that the Ford GT is so imperious in a straight line, and it's clearly the fastest car this week in a straight line. However, the 4C is much more planted and nimble, and so in this middle sector here, you'll notice we're right on the back of the GT in first place here, of the Frenchman. We're going to go on board, I think, for the first 3 laps here, so you're just going to see how this unfolds, as we actually just give him a little love tap in the back there. But as you'll see here, 4 tenths behind now in the slipstream. In any other sort of scenario on GT7, you'd be pulling up to the back of the car in front, but in fact we're actually losing time on the Frenchman in front here. This corner, super tricky. You'll hear everybody say it, but it's so difficult to get right. Not too bad that time. A step of oversteer. I think that's my main problem around that corner, is getting on the power too soon and too often. So we're going to come into the pits here, and as I say, don't change, don't refuel. Now, the strategy tends to be pit on lap 1 or pit on sort of the second to last or last lap. But really you want to be pitting so that you're out in no traffic, because that's the main thing here. If you're pitting early, you want to make sure you're not in any traffic. And as you can see, we're going to come out of the pits here. And we have a little bit of room in front of us. There's a Ford GT facing the wrong way in turn 1 there. So as I say, the 4C is fantastic in this section here. It's really light, really nimble. It's a little bit oversteery at times, and I probably took a bit too much of that there, and a bit too much of that as well. So that's a pretty untidy section. It's a super important section to get right. The first turn is super important of that sort of 3-corner sequence there, because you get all sorts of out of shape. And then here we have a Supra just ghosting back in. I didn't want to take the risk, but I'm going to barge up the inside here because we really can't be affording to lose much time to the back markers here. So we're going to barge through the Supra there and just hope that they get no run on us on the back straight, but actually they have a penalty, so it doesn't really matter too much. So again, coming down into the hairpin here, super important corner. There's a little shadow, you'll notice, just there. It's like a sort of, I don't know, like a metal sort of framing that comes across the circuit as a shadow. And that's a good point to brake. And you'll notice there I get a huge step of oversteer as I get on the power, and I go over the track limits and get that annoying yet so common ½ second penalty. Super irritating, because as I say, you really need to make hay if you're pitting early, because you're on such a different strategy to the guys in front. You'll notice 12.6 to the leaders now as we jump forward to the back straight here, where we're going to serve this penalty. So that gap to the leaders is going to go up from 12.7 to about 13.5 seconds coming into the hairpin. So as you can see, probably losing actually about a second there from that ½ second penalty. And it just pegs you back. All the progress you make from some clean laps, it just pegs you back, which is really frustrating. But we're gonna have to make do. It was completely our own fault, completely an unforced error. So we're just gonna have to suck it up and keep pumping the lap times in. Good marker here for the first corner is just on the end of that, the curb that comes up on the right. Just as you see that, as it comes at level with the front of your car, braking there is usually a good bet. As I say, this section's super important to get right, because if you get all sorts of out of shape coming down the hill, then this happens. And again, such an important factor of this race, if you pit early, is staying out of the way of traffic. And you'll notice that gap on the left hand side all the time going up and up over 15 seconds now. So I had to get underneath them here and just basically what I did to the Spaniard a few laps ago, just barge through on the inside. Not the cleanest move I'll ever make, and you know, if that was for the lead, then it would be a bit of a different story. But I think just I had to get out of the way of these guys because they were clearly much slower than I was, and they were fighting hammer and tong. Actually, the 650 behind doesn't take my slipstream. I was massively expecting to get shadow realmed into that hairpin, but luckily that didn't happen. So we're going to move forward, we're going to get out of their clutches. A couple of guys in front now pitting, so we're back up to, I think we're going to get back up to P6 here. And you'll notice this Curtin Senna, the Brit on the left, who's just come out of the pits, is going to become an important factor in this race. As you'll see, we're going to jump forward here to the end of lap 6. The leader into the pits from the lead. 15.8 seconds was the gap. If you pit without tyres and without fuel, I think it's about a 10-second pit stop. If you put tyres on, it's about 15. And I believe the guys up in front here were putting tyres on, because if they didn't, they'd have been out way ahead of me. But actually, we come out and you see there Shuriken, the Frenchman, the man who was in first place, were actually ahead even with a 15-second gap, so they must have fitted tyres. But as we move through this race, we're going to see here, as you can see at the bottom left of your screen, the tyres really starting to go off now, and that is the main factor here. And in fact, the point of the title is choosing the right strategy, or I suppose more fittingly would be choosing the right car, because the 4C, while it is nimble in the middle sector, and it is probably just about as fast as the 4GT over the course of a lap, it's a lot less kind to its tyres. And that's going to come into fruition here. As you can see, we've got 5 full laps to go here, and as you can see from the back right tyre is really struggling. So that's going to become a bigger and bigger factor. As you can see, the gap to third is now 1.7, and that's the guy Curtin Senna who I said would come into play. And actually, the Frenchman who was in the lead, I believe, has spun out and I think actually left. So that's a bit of a shame. You never really want to see a fast player spinning out like that. But yeah, we're going to jump forward here, first sector of lap 8. Taking that not too bad, but as you can see, Curtin Senna behind me just taking tenths out of me here and there, and actually I get a big step of oversteer and just sort of, you know, amble towards the middle of the corner, and I get a track limits violation there. Really annoying, because that's such an easy corner to get around without violating the track limits. And then again, a big step of oversteer coming out. The tyres really going off now. 8/10 the gap to third place, and I think it's only a matter of time here as we serve this penalty. We're going to move to the left-hand side. Not only do we try and get out of the way, but also for this situation here is cover the inside. And actually, we just about managed to hold on in this corner with a big step of oversteer. I thought potentially I could have gone over the track limits there, but we're a-okay for now. But as you can see, the Porsche basically pushing us down the straight. I'm going to stay on the inside here, going to stay low, and then furthermore, we're going to go further to the left here. We're going to basically cover off any inside move. So we're going to force him to go around the outside. And unfortunately here, I get my braking point pretty good, but then I just get a huge step just here, and I basically would have understeered straight into the Porsche if I hadn't stepped out of the power. And you know, when you're battling for what is effectively the lead of the race, you never really want to shadow realm someone. So we're going to have to let the Porsche go here, and as you can see, straight away, I mean, it's just night and day. So whether, I believe this player must have fitted a new set of tyres, and those sort of 4 or 5 seconds we lost behind that traffic, if you remember a few laps ago, is really hurting us. So a lap forward here to lap 10. We've kept the gap at 1.2. Check the bottom of the screen. That rear right tyre is absolutely screaming in pain, and it's just about to go off the cliff here, and we have 2 full laps to go. So this is going to get a bit dicey, I think. I think the main focus here is not looking forward, but it's surviving. and just not basically spearing ourselves off into the barrier as a result of us having no rear right tyre. So as we come over the line here for the last 2 laps of the race, we're going to stay on board now to the end of the race, and as you can see, we literally have no rear right tyre. It's dead, and immediately we slide around the first corner. It's so difficult. I mean, it rightfully should be, because I haven't looked after the tyres and they've gone off, but you know, it's basically like you're driving sort of on dirt, you know, in a rally car, but you're actually in a Group 3 car somehow, and you just have to basically just try and get it round as much as you possibly can. And Deep Forest, quite a technical circuit with a lot of different types of turns, so it really isn't easy. This back sector here is not too bad, 2 long straights, so it's not going to be testing the tyres too badly, but that middle section of the lap is so tricky when you have no tyre. So you're going to notice here very soon that Nick in the lead, the Russian driver, is going to head into the pits. 13.4 the gap, but this time I believe this driver is not going to change tyres. So as you noticed, 15.8 the gap was before, and we came out ahead. 13.4 the gap is to Nick in front, and you'll notice that we are going to come out behind, so that's the power of not changing the tyres. As you see there, the Ford GT here, and I just can't compete. You know, the Ford GT is so much kinder to its tyres. I have since bought the Ford GT and won a couple of races with it, because it's not just the fastest car, but it's also seems to be one of the kindest on its tyres, and that's a pretty unbeatable pairing, if you ask me. So yeah, as I say, getting more used to the slide now, just sort of not driving it as I would if my tyres weren't off, just being super careful with the throttle input, and just making sure you don't absolutely jam it in, so you send your rear end spinning round. So onto the back straight for the very last time. Tricky corner, that one, easy to get a track limit. I believe you can go over the white line once you reach the curb, so if you go over the white line with all 4 tyres before you reach the curb, I believe that's when you incur the penalty, because I know it can be a bit inconsistent, or it seems like it is, but I believe once you get to the curb you can take as much as you want, and basically forcing the car to turn in. Even the front right tyre now is pretty much gone off. We pretty much got one functional tyre, as the rear left is pretty bad too. But we are going to come across the line, 5 seconds the difference to the leader in the end for a P3, losing 1 place from the start, but not too bad in the end. Lessons to be learned. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, drop a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. See you later, guys.